and this seems to be that they're hunting type of creatures. So, yeah. What? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the difficulty of actually spotting these folks, these things. I should say, folks. Maybe they are folks. I mean, some people say that they feel like that it could be some kind of they could be the Cain, the descendants of Cain. I mean, this is all speculation, so it's kind of pointless to say that. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, where they come from and what they are, but until we have an opportunity here. Yeah. What about the government? Have you ever thought about that? I mean, what? This. Listen, and we know, and I don't know how patriotic you are, but no matter how patriotic you are, we see how much we can really trust these people. I mean, just look at the latest, all the nonsense, the latest election, all the things that are coming out. You think that they've been hiding this for a reason?
So I will tell you that before my encounter, I trusted the government. I did. And in part of my world getting flipped upside down, another thing, which I understand. So, like, people who make fun of conspiracy theorists. I used to be one of you. Okay, so when my world got flipped and I started realizing that the government's lying to me, because if a country boy like myself knows that these things are out there, the government knows. I mean, there's no way.
Absolutely, there's absolutely. Absolutely.
You cannot tell me that they do not know. And so then the next question is, why are they hiding? So at first I thought, well, it's the logging, they shut that down, the economy's going in the toilet, yada, 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 whatever. I don't believe that anymore. I believe that's part of it, but what I truly believe is when I saw the Bigfoot in 2014, before that, anybody that said they saw an alien, for instance, I literally inside laughed at. If I met a person, I was laughing inside. And as soon as I walked out, I was talking crap on them about how they're crazy. Same thing. If I had ever heard somebody that say they saw a Bigfoot in Missouri, same exact thing. But I think what the government fears is they fear the chain reaction that happens when you see a Bigfoot. Now, so far, I've never heard anybody give this theory. I'm sure I'm not the first one to think of it, but it's the chain reaction that happens is once you realize, not, I think Bigfoot's real or they might be real. When you know that they are real, there's a creature out there. Now, whether it's what they call Bigfoot or not, you don't know, but you've seen it. You know for a fact it is real and it is out there and it is where you live. All of a sudden, all these crazy people start getting a little less crazy. You start thinking, well, what about aliens? And now, today, I fully believe that there are aliens. And I think that the government fears these chain of events because they've worked so hard building the reality that I lived in a small town in mid-Missouri. My own reality was shaped as a child, and so were my parents and family members. And I have broken that, and it sucks. I hate it. I hate not trusting my government. I hate believing in aliens or knowing that Bigfoot is real because it's uncomfortable. And so I have family members that refuse to let me show them the evidence that I've collected, the videos I have, the time I spend out in the woods now, because it makes them uncomfortable, and we want to be comfortable. And so I lived in St. Louis during these riots all the riots that were happening in St. Louis. And I can tell you that a bunch of people who are motivated, whether it be a good reason or a bad reason, scares authority figures because
I can tell you from my own research when you're talking about what happened there, Ferguson and all that.
Yeah,
that the Jesuits and the government were involved in it anyways because they're just trying to stoke unrest between and keep us on balance. You got to understand a few things about government. Conspiracy is its nature to begin with. Also, they're not your friend. They never were. We have right now an oligarchy ruling this country, and they don't give a rat's ass about you or me. We're just nobodies to them, and they don't have a problem. In fact, it's necessary. If you study political science, it's necessary. It's a necessary principle of the governing body to lie to the governed body. That's you and I. So that's what they're going to lie to you. You're going to see more and more you grow. You're going to find out that your government was lied to you about a lot of things. I mean,
absolutely.
I don't have to do much research about 9/11, but 9/11, there's overwhelming evidence that well, let's put it this way: what is the probability? I mean, about a little bit. It sounds to me about self-defense and offensive maneuvers. What would be a probability that 19 Arabs with box cutters could do all that damage?
Well, not only that, what's the probability of them, after all that wreckage, finding the passport on the ground that linked them to, you know what I mean? But I get 100% what you're saying, and I'm right there with you. It's
right. And I don't think that's being non-patriotic, because you have to decide what is your patriotism about. Is it about you
absolutely.
And I? And defending the whole country?
You, or is it I love this country. I love this country. I hate the government, and I'll tell you, I was a ignorant person before I saw what I saw, and that's why I believe that they're covering this up, because just like in Ferguson, they're scared of the populace rioting, of finally being sick of it and saying we're not putting up with. That's what they're scared of. And when it comes to aliens and Bigfoot, could you imagine if your little boy was taken by one of these creatures and the government lied to you about it, and then 10 years later they come out and say, oh yeah, these things are real, we knew it? Could you imagine what would happen?
Well, yeah. Well, just I can only imagine if they never even had said anything. They never did admit it. I mean, can you imagine? Well, I can imagine. I can imagine how we have been betrayed by these people, and they don't care about you and I. And what would be the ultimate motive here is apparently they don't know how to deal with these things.
That too.
Also, you got to remember, we are. This is a 200-year-old plus country, so it's now at its final stages of being completely and utterly subjected by the ruling elite. Totally. But there's still areas that have not been. And, when you are motivating people to colonize a region, an area, well, you don't want to, you don't want something like, hey, oh yeah, we're going to have you move here to southern Florida or Missouri, but just to let you know, there's these big beasts. They're like friggin', up to 12 feet tall, and they could break you into like a pretzel. But don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Have fun.
I think it's a perfect storm, and that's what they're trying to avoid, is this perfect storm, And
here's the other thing, too. I noticed a lot of times what this is, like, you're an outdoors guy, and you spend a lot of time outdoors, the average person, the way they've designed things, our culture today, is that people spend 99.9% of their time indoors, and they're they just gonna the average person they zip through where they're driving on the highway in downtown, and they're just busy, and they're doing their own thing, and they're not really paying attention, like you said, not being aware of their surroundings. And so we become disconnected, the vast majority of, with the true environment, the true reality of where we live. And so, you look at the native cultures, and every single North American tribe had some kind of story about some big animal that we're talking about. And why is that? It's because there was such a thing, and there is such a thing. Then, obviously these creatures are vastly intelligent. I mean, extremely intelligent. For them to avoid being captured, just to avoid, the millions of people in this country, it says something about them. Yeah, and then there's the thing about too, is how many times has things like this happened, or they've done a lot of covering up about a lot of things.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and what happens when something like this, like a creature like this, does get shot? Or, I mean, I imagine that there's authorities, there's bodies out there. Their job is to cover up any kind of incident.
Well, another thing though is, I mean, could you imagine? I mean, the animal that I saw was between 800 and 1,200 pounds. How are you going to get that out of the woods? How, you know what I mean? You have to have a plan in place unless you just shot it right there. Now, I do believe that they've been hit, and I do believe that there is a cover-up going on. But if I had to shoot one, now I do know ignorant guys that, let's say they're sitting in a deer stand and they see something several hundred yards away and they start taking shots at it. But if it's close, I can promise you this. You will not be shooting your gun. I don't care how confident you are, how big your gun is, or how tough you are, unless you have to, unless that thing comes at you. And it is a last-ditch effort to save your own life or your loved one's life.
Well, this creature seems to have some kind of ability to cause us humans to not do that, to freeze up and not to respond. To I don't know if it's something psychological, because one of the things is the amount of fear that people experience when they're around it. I mean, even these old time booger chasers, like what we were talking about earlier. Oh gosh, what's his name? The two guys, Bear and the other guy.
Kumbo.
Kumbo, yeah. They pretty much sort of like, well, it's probably they don't even bring a gun with them, right? I mean, there's something that happens to us that we don't want to kill them, which is interesting. Well, it's fear too. I mean, it's like, how do you prepare yourself for that moment, anyways?
Exactly.
Let me ask you, how would you prepare yourself now that you have had that moment?
You couldn't. The only thing you could do, literally, is unleash a grizzly bear on somebody, not expecting it. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think that secret power you're talking about getting us to stop is called, it's a 1,000-pound animal that's standing upright and staring at you. And I mean, you are in so much fear that I guarantee anyone in that same situation, if I was holding a 50 cal that day, if I had a 50 caliber in that truck with an anti-tank round, I would not have fired it unless that thing came at me. it would have, and I don't even know if I would have fired it then. It was just, it, it's so amazing to see them, but you can't, I don't think there's any way that you can prepare yourself for something like that. It's hard to even put in words, but I just don't think that you can prepare yourself for something like that because your brain is grasping for any information it has to try to explain what you're seeing, and it can't do it. I mean, it's like I don't know. I don't think you can prepare for something like that.
So is it like for me it's like the only way I can possibly relate to what you experienced is if I think about the time I saw a grizzly bear or the time I saw a moose, and it's a herd of elk or something like that. You're just like you stop in your tracks and you just go wow, because it's the majestic, it's new, the majestic image that it is, this huge animal, seeing it just be itself in the environment. So I mean, and here's if you look at people and how they respond to things too, it's like out in Ohio a few years ago there was a guy that had like one of these farms or whatever where he's raising. He had a whole bunch of different types of like big cats and stuff like that. And I guess something happened, and either he died or, anyways, they got out, and it was a big deal. And they ended up passing laws and all that. But I mean, everybody in the whole state was freaking out. Oh my gosh, there's tigers running around and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, have you ever talked to anybody who tried to share this, their experience with the authority and how the authority responded? Because I know that there are guys out there like that. That one guy that Brenton
Solon.
Yeah, the guy, the game warden or whatever he is.
Yeah,
and,
I've never personally talked to anybody that's tried to share it with an authority. I've obviously told a SWAT team member, but I don't know anybody personally that I've spoken to that's tried and had it. So I don't know about that.
Well, it would be a very interesting experiment and study for you would be actually to talk to some of these game wardens, try to find somebody to talk to just to see what the response is.
Well,
and
I've
share it with everyone else so that because a lot of times you learn a lot by doing that too. I mean, the power of that message, if they're really receptive to your message, then that says something. And or if they're not, if they like poo-hoo it or just shelf it, I mean, or maybe they'll tell you can't keep it to yourself type of thing. I don't know. I mean, do you worry about that sometimes, or like somebody's going to tell you to shut up about it?
Well, if somebody tells me to shut up about it, I will just speak louder. I mean, I probably got 5 ex-girlfriends that'll attest to that, but they're
well,
not
that
going to
says
shut
something
me
right
up.
there, man. So you've actually shared this with 5 ex-girlfriends. So is that what you're saying, or are you just saying that?
No, I'm just saying that they know I don't shut up. So
okay.
if somebody tells me to shut up, it's I'll kind of.
Have you had that opportunity to share that with, say, somebody, your significant other, your girlfriend?
Yes.
How did they respond to that message? You say, "Hey, man, girl, I've seen something that you just won't believe."
My current girlfriend, and she does not believe these creatures are real. Now, I will say I could not have dated a more opposite girl than me. The way she was raised, her beliefs, it made Christmas with the family entertaining, but she does not believe, but yet she has been woken up by me having a nightmare, screaming I didn't realize I screamed until after I woke up, and she told me that I was screaming while I was sleeping. But so she knows that there's something, that I saw something, but she doesn't believe that Bigfoot's real. She doesn't believe the aliens are real. She doesn't believe.
Well, what does she think they are?
She believes they don't exist. I don't know. She
well, there's different approaches. Some, like a lot of Christians would say that aliens are demons, and that and this Bigfoot thing is some kind of demonic force. Others may say the same thing or different. One thing, if you're waking up with nightmares and you're doing this and you're I not say you're wasting, but you're spending your Sunday night with a guy you don't even know, and Michael Adams lives in Toledo about this. That says something to me. This is that you had an experience that you believe is real. It's so much that you're willing to start a YouTube channel and talk about this. That tells me that whatever happened was real. Because that's for something that's unless you're working for the government and you're part of some military psyops and you're just messing with us.
Well, if I am, then you go ahead and let them know I'm still waiting on that paycheck because I have not received that yet. So
yeah, I mean, it's like bring this up. I mean, it's not like the coolest thing. You know what I mean?
No, it is not. I will tell you, my family is, the classic Pentecostal Christians. No, I mean, it's very straightforward. They do not waste time in believing in things that aren't real. They I will tell you that standing up to my family and finally saying that this happened and that I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to warn you guys because I love you. And, my uncle who taught me hunting, and my grandfather and my cousin who I've spent more hours in the woods than with anybody else, I'm going to warn you because I love you and I know you were like me and you don't believe these things are out there. But I'm going to tell you that way if something odd happens, you can be prepared and you can maybe approach it in a different situation, because if something happened to somebody I loved because I wouldn't open my mouth, that would be worse than seeing a Bigfoot and never talking about it. You know what I mean? And it's not fun. It's not cool. I shoot 1,000-yard competitively, and, I hide it from those people. And I just found out today that one of my buddies is listening to my podcast, and he actually, he's like, dude, I love it, man. My wife said that this happened to her. I don't know if they're real, but man, I know you, and I believe in what happened to you, and that was awesome. But it's not a cool subject, people laugh.
It's when you confront reality, you're not going to. I mean, truth is a lonely warrior. If you confront the truth, you're going to ruffle a lot of feathers, and you're not going to win friends. You're going to you'll win different friends, but you will not become the most popular guy around because you threatened them in a lot of ways. And one of it is the most important thing that people that are driven by is the acceptance of the group, to be part of it, and to follow the truth. Will do you know about the Plato's Cave?
No.
Yeah, well, we'll look that up. The Plato's Cave. It's a poem. It's a little short story because it's your journey. I strongly recommend you do that. Okay. And I mean, go for it. I say, man, go for it and pursue the truth, man. The world is much more interesting when you do that. It's scary. It's frightening. It's a lonely journey at times, but the world becomes much more interesting. The reality is far more interesting than anything that you will find on television or what they taught you in the public school system, and yeah, open up your eyes. You know what I mean? And explore. I mean, this is if the thing is, there's thousands of people who are saying this, and slowly because of guys like what you're doing, and what Brenton. What's Brenton's full name again? I can in front of
Brenton Sawin, Sawin.
Yeah, Brenton's just a good old boy, but you know what? Obviously, a lot of people find it entertaining. Okay, that's for sure. Storytelling has always been a very important element in the human experience. But there's a certain point when you have to say, man, like everyone's like, either everyone is so desperate for attention and they'll say anything, or people are experiencing this. Now, I live in suburbia, so I don't have these kind of experiences. That doesn't mean that won't happen. It just means someday. I might walk out my front porch and there'll be something. You know what I mean? I don't know, but other people are experiencing this. And why is it? What's going on here? And this is something. This story of this mountain man, this Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, whatever the many names, has been going on for a long time, since recorded history in North America. So,
Absolutely.
what is going on, man? And it needs to be tackled. But you know what? The one thing I've learned too is that if the mainstream media is involved with it, they're going to usurp it because of their connections with the government and everything else. They're not. It's just like you watch these shows on, whatever, the Animal Channel or whatever. I haven't watched television 5 years, 6 years now, so I don't remember. But
good for you.
Yeah, I've never watched. I got a 5.5-year-old son that I have most of the time, and we never even watched a day of television. So, you do something, buddy. You know what I mean? Entertain yourself. I'll entertain you. Let's learn some stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
can tell you that where you're at, I guarantee that these things are on the borders of the towns you live in. It's that's what I mean. Like I said in the very beginning of the show, one of the motivations is, where, in my opinion, one of the places that I thought that these things would not be, and I would be safe, because I started taking baby steps, trying to get back into shooting, trying to get back into hunting, and both experiences were horrible. Actually, the time I went out and, got a squirrel right by the house, something started banging two rocks together, and me trying to get out and start shooting again, I found literally just in the wood line of one of the shooting ranges. When you shoot competitively, you do load development, you're harmonically tuning your loads to your barrel. You're at the range a lot, you're doing load development and all sorts of stuff, but a footprint and two structures right in the wood line, and I heard a whoop.
You found a footprint. There's two structures. Wow.
And I have videos of them on my phone, and it's like.
How close to the house? How close to the house were these?
Well, this was at the shooting range I'm talking about, but
how far away is that? How far away is that from the house? Just how many miles?
Oh, this is in a different town, completely different town.
Different county, or is it?
Yeah, different county. But I completely thought that this would be the safe area because no animal's going to be around here, and yet I now believe that they sit here every day. And I think if there's a human element, they watch it, and if there's a dangerous or potentially dangerous human element, that they definitely have at least one posted up there at all times. And I have proof to back up my theory and experiences that's happened out there. But there's these two massive structures right there, and I guarantee you I'm the only human being other than the person that I showed and people I've showed my phone, the videos on my phone, that I'm the only one that knows these are there, unless the conservation agents know they're there, but I don't think so. Not in this particular spot, because I think a lot of them are blind to it. The actual agents that do, the patrolling, I think a lot of them are blind to it as well. But these things are right there, and they're hiding right in plain sight. You just have to, have the right eyes to see it. And then once you do, you can't unsee it. You can't stop seeing it. And that's what is driving me, because I have something to prove, and I can show it to anybody, and I want to. Eventually my show is going to be podcast, and then I would like to do video encounters, and then I would like to do, show people what I'm doing, out in the woods, how I'm finding these things, what I'm finding about them. But, it's easy to prove because it's right there, and it's stuff that you cannot dismiss and you cannot explain away with a tornado or nature or people. It's amazing. And, standing in the middle of the town I live in with my cousin one day, we heard one thing on one edge of town roaring and one thing on the other edge of town doing the siren calls back and forth. And we're standing cleaning 5 squirrels. I was teaching them how to clean squirrels, and it's nighttime, and we're standing in this small town of less than 2,000 people, and we're hearing this go back and forth. The next day, I went and I spent 2.5 hours knocking on people's doors where I heard the one roaring, asking people if they heard that the night before. And it was amazing. Not one single person heard it. And it blew my mind, because I'm at least a mile away from the edge of town, and I could hear this thing, and it was obvious. And me knocking on these people's doors of where it had to have been, none of them, not one person heard one thing on all the doors I knocked on. And I got to tell you, it's very awkward to knock on somebody's door, introduce myself, and say, have you ever heard anything odd? By the end of it, I had everything I was going to say planned out, because trial and error of the first couple, but I was motivated because there was somebody that had to have heard it. I was like, there's no way I'm not going to get at least 5 people that heard that last night, but not one of them heard it. Just me and my cousin, who was at least a mile away from both of them, right in the middle of the two. And the one that was doing the siren call, I honestly think it's an aggressive call or a territory call, because as soon as it would stop, the other one that was doing this roaring would go right at it. And as soon as the roaring would stop, the siren one would almost interrupt it, kind of like it was mocking it. And they were going back and forth. And I'm like, dude, do you hear this? He's like, yeah, shut up. And we stopped cleaning the squirrels and we sat there and listened to it. It was amazing. And I'm standing in the middle of town. And the person that was with me was the first guest on my show, my cousin Jordan. And he was also with me during the gut pile, but I asked him not to talk about it because I didn't know if I wanted to. I didn't know how I wanted to share my encounters, and I think I'm going to have him back on just so people know. But, I mean, it's amazing. I'm in the middle of town, and people are so blind and so busy with their day-to-day lives. Me too. The only reason I heard it is because we were out back cleaning squirrels, and I was teaching him how to do it. And it's like, this is so obvious. Like, the blindfold that is on people's faces, and that was on mine myself. As much as I hate that it got smacked off, I'm thankful, because I was so blinded. And now that I see, it's like I have to show people, I have to. It's like a responsibility you're given whenever you live. You have people you care about that spend their lives out in the woods, hunting, fishing, hobbies, and they might be in danger because they refuse to believe or can't see, the facts of this, because it's turned into a joke. I'm sorry, I went on a rant there. I apologize.
No,
that's
that's great.
Something I haven't.
No, it's obviously that the creator of this realm that we live, God, if you call him, is motivating you for a mission to do something, and so yeah, you need to do it, and you're going to have to face reality in many ways. So and you're going to grow immensely because of this. So I hope you keep it up. The thing is, I was going to ask you about was when you went back out hunting. What was it like for you, well, emotionally and inwardly, and how were you? What was going on in your head, in your body?
Okay, so after the gut pile got taken, that's when I started experiencing all the negative side effects to my sighting, and so it was either the following year or the year after. I'm not sure here, but I went deer hunting, quote unquote deer hunting, and I was so scared that I couldn't leave the field. I ended up sitting by the gate and convincing myself that this is the best spot. In reality, I know it's not the best spot, and then I'm not going to see anything. Well, I didn't. And so I was like, my cousin.
You didn't, obviously, you didn't want to see anything. So
Exactly.
Which, there's signs of fear and trauma. So, what was going through your head? I mean, what were you afraid of, man?
I was afraid of everything. I mean, if a squirrel moved, or I saw any movement of a bird, it was just fear. And I was also scared of getting a deer, because then I knew I had to clean it and drag it out. And it was just, I don't even know if I would have shot if I would have saw one. So then I got to, my cousin basically called me and had a heart-to-heart. And it was like, Dustin, the same things that were out there when we were kids, out there hunting, just you and me, are out there today. And you've got to get back up on this horse. And I'm like, I know, man, I know. He's like, if you want, I'll go out with you. I'll go out with you. Well, squirrel hunting is my favorite. I enjoy it, and it's my favorite game meat by far. And anybody that knocks it, absolutely. Anybody
when I was a kid, we used to have like a New Year's dinner type thing. We used to go hunting, and one of the squirrel was always on the dinner plates, man. So
absolutely.
yeah, it's good stuff.
Anybody that knocks it haven't tried it. They're scared because it's a squirrel. It's its own taste, but man, I love it. But I love hunting squirrel because you can hunt them, multiple different ways. With a rifle or a shotgun, and the ways you go about that are totally different. So
yeah,
I've done a lot of squirrel hunting.
The only wild game that I'd never liked, and I've tried, and I'm one of the few, I guess, a muskrat. Man, that stuff's, God, that's hard. That's for some tough meat.
I've never had that. We don't have those.
Well, we used to trap in the woods or a stream that went by there, and we had put this trap there, and we'd always end up catching a couple of muskrats.
We do have muskrat here, but I've never tried one. I'll have to see about that. But anyway,
I don't recommend it, man. Don't waste your time. It is we're eating a rat, man. It's not any good.
So I was trying to get back into squirrel hunting, and as a kid, you learn how to do it, and then you get a better rifle, better shotgun. Well, then once you get really good at it, for me, I like the challenge. And so when I go out now, I use the single shot 410 youth model gun, the first gun my dad ever got me, and that's what I use because I like the challenge of it, and the 410 doesn't beat them up. You don't waste much meat, if any. And so that's what I went out with. Now, I had a Glock on me, but I told myself, I'm like, okay, Dustin, we're going to walk over here. You're going to get you a squirrel, and you're going to go inside. You're going to get one squirrel, and you're going to go inside. It's like I was trying to take a baby step on my own, And the woods I was going to is the woods I was going to hunt in that one day. So literally, you cross the field, and the woods are right there. So I was close to the house, and I walked to the edge of the wood line. And I was always taught when you get to the edge of a wood line, you sit for 5 minutes and listen, because if something's down there that you're hunting, you're going to scare it away breaking through the wood line because you can't see it. So, I stop, I sit, and my adrenaline's pumping because I'm scared. And I'm telling myself, I'm going in, I'm getting one squirrel, and I'm leaving. Okay, so I wait my 5 minutes or so, and I walk in and I stop again. And I'm scanning, looking for a squirrel. Well, I see one about, 70, 100 yards in the wood line. So I get up in there. Well, he sees me, he goes to a different tree. I see the tree, he goes in. I go over there, and I get him. I harvested him. Okay, and so I'm feeling pretty good because, I did what I set out to. Well, I'm standing there, and I walk over to the little knoll where my game camera's up, and I hear a squirrel about 100 yards further into the woods. And so immediately I stop and I'm looking for any movement because I can hear him and I know he's down there. So I'm looking to see him, and boom, I spot him. And so automatically I forgot about going in because I see another squirrel and I know I can get him. So I'm thinking about going after this squirrel. Well, as this is going on, to my right, there's a little ravine, and something takes two rocks, and it was clearly either they had two rocks in their hands or they had one rock and was banging it on another rock. But something goes, clack, 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 and it's banging it. And it scared me so bad. I mean, instantly, I thought, no way. Like, this isn't impossible. This is not what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing this. And so I take off towards the house. I'm going, and I'm running, or I'm kind of jogging down, because there's hollers. I'm going down and up, and I'm not too far from the wood line. And this thing it's not in between me and the wood line, the distance it is, but it's farther ahead of me, like towards where the second squirrel was that I was looking at. But it is over closer to the wood line than me. And I'm looking, and so I run and I stop because I end up convincing myself that's not what I heard. That is not what I heard. So I stop, and I'm kind of, breathing because I wasn't running, but I was kind of a slow jog. And as I stopped, and I look over towards where it was, and as soon as I do, clack, 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 it starts again. And I just took the sign. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. And I went to the house, and it shocked me because that was the first time, other than quote-unquote deer hunting, when I was too scared to leave the gate, that I tried to do something. And it happened. I mean, and it blew my mind because it's broad daylight. It had to have been there because I know nothing walked up on me, and it was where it sounded like it came from was this ravine that has this creek that leads to this lake that's down the woods a bit of a ways. Like in the fall time, from where I was standing, you can see a piece of it way down there. But it just blew my mind because I'm like, why would they do that? The first time I try to go out, there's something out there. How many times have I went squirrel hunting in my life and never experienced anything? Why would it do it this time? Why would it do it this? And it was playing with my head. And for a while, I was questioning, are these things supernatural? I don't believe that they are, but it took that first baby step, and it threw me back 10 steps. It was, it felt like I was being tortured.
Do you? Yeah, well, I can imagine that would be. I mean, it just kind of ruins your experiences. I mean, outdoors, you're always. Well, I don't know. I mean, could it be possible that because of that experience, it heightened your awareness and now you notice things that you never really paid attention to. Maybe you always thought they were just falling branches and you know, what it's like being out in the woods. You're always hearing things. I mean, there is also this kind of I must say, from my memory, and even if I go in the woods by myself, there's a kind of mysterious, magical feeling. I don't know what else to say except that because it's I don't know. I mean, I always, you know, when I go in the woods, I always become much more. I don't know. It's sometimes I wonder if it's because of the Cherokee Indian in me or something like that. But I've always been. The moment I'm in the woods, I'm looking around, man, and it's not because I'm paranoid. It's just because it's just instinctual. And could it be that because you had this experience, now you're heightened? Oh, you have a higher awareness, a heightened awareness.
The only thing with that, though, is that it was so loud and it was so obvious that I think even if this had happened before, I may have walked over there to see what it was because it was loud. Like it was a powerful banging of a rock against a rock. I mean, it was obvious. It was not a tree. It was not a stick. Like,
I'm not saying that your experience is not real. They're not doing that. I'm saying that because you had the experience, now you're recognizing it more than you before. You might have dismissed it as what I'm saying, like something natural. You know, a rock, just some animal moved it or whatever. You know, whatever, raccoon or whatever. You know, although in the middle of the day, a squirrel, you don't see raccoons, do you? Really? That's not a good argument. Yeah, it must. I mean, it must. Does it? I mean, walking out your front porch. Does that? Are you are automatically, you know, until you get in the car, kind of thing? Are you looking around, kind of thing? No. I mean, I mean,
in the middle of town or in the middle of a city, if I step outside, if I'm in the house and it's nighttime and there's a window that's not covered, I don't have a curtain, I will take magnets off the fridge and paper towels and get that window covered.
Yeah, so I remember used to saying that with your interview with Brent. So yeah, I mean, this is something that really did happen to you. For you to have these kind of responses and a reaction tells me you had an experience.
Have you ever noticed when you're driving along like a highway and somebody's driveway, they have those red reflector lights?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so normally they'll put one on each side. So let's say it's on a curve. As you're going around the curve, sometimes they look like they're side by side. Even at nighttime, when I see any sort of reflection off the side of the road, instantly I jump. I mean, it's even driving, it affects me. And for my job, I drive a lot. And, you know, there's all sorts of little things that you never noticed before that you start noticing because it's like that, or like on power lines. The boxes on power lines have a little piece of reflective tape on them that when you're driving at night, if you hit it just right, they'll glint for just a second depending on the angle of the box. You know, even stuff like that. Yes, absolutely. I'm always have a heightened awareness because of fear.
Yeah, and it's a really normal, natural response. It reminds me of my father and how he was after the war, and he would have nightmares. I mean, he's my mom. You know, she's told me stories. You know, it was before I was born, but her waking up and him choking her.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I mean, this to have these kind of responses that you're having, this tells me you had an experience that was very traumatic. And I can only imagine that most people that have these kind of experiences. I mean, I know. I mean, I think about these other guys that, you know, yeah, I mean, it changes your life, doesn't it? It's very traumatic. I mean, it's a spiritual, psychological, altering event that just doesn't happen normally. I mean, it's not like, you know, watching a horror movie and having a little nightmare. I mean, this is something that's beyond that, right? So.
Yeah. Is it okay if I share one more thing with you? That
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, man. I'm enjoying this. I'm having a lot of. In a sick way, I'm having fun, but maybe it's because I know I'm having. It's not that I have fun. I find this very intriguing, and it's turning out to be because once you realize you've been lied to about just about everything. I mean, for me now, I mean, especially from the official narrative, I'm like, man, I'm all ears, man, because this is probably a lot of truth in what you're saying. You know?
Absolutely.
I mean, if I was a betting man, I would bet on you. It's your story is true.
I appreciate that.
I never had that experience, but I've had other experiences of my own that are, you know, like, how could this possibly be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Ed. Share the.
What you were asking me earlier, you know, do you think this, because of what you saw, you know, that your awareness is heightened, and there's an encounter that happened with me, my best friend. Actually, he was the second guy. Episode 2, TJ was there. He didn't hear anything, but my stepdad and my stepbrother. So TJ was starting to believe, you know, what was going on. He believed that I saw something that affected me, but still kind of on the fence about the Bigfoot thing. Wasn't sure. But my stepdad and stepbrother 100% did not believe it because they grew up on this property where I saw this. But so my stepbrother, I believe this was last deer season, was going to hang up a stand, and he asked me if I could help him. And it was a homemade stand, and so that means it was heavy. It was a one-piece ladder stand that was heavy because they made it out of scrap metal. Asked me if I would help him hang it. So I said, sure. Is it just going to be me and you? And he's like, yeah, you know, Dad might come, but I'm like, okay, well, I'll call TJ and see if he'll help us. So TJ says yes. We go out there. My stepdad comes out and says, you know, asks where's my stepbrother's at. And I'm like, oh, are you helping? He's like, yeah. So we're all standing there waiting on him. He ends up showing up late, so it's getting close to dark. And, you know, the running joke in my family is I'm like, I turn into a pumpkin at dusk. So whatever I do, I got to be inside before it gets dark. And I told him that when he asked me. I'm like, as long as we do it in the daylight, I'm fine. Like, and he's like, yeah, no problem. Well, ends up he's late. So we get out there, and this is the same woods that I was squirrel hunting in. And, you know, I said where my game cam was, well, this is pointing towards that. It's within 50 or 60 yards of that. And so it's just in the wood line. We drive the pickup down. We put a pulley up in the tree, or we throw a rope over, and we end up tying the truck, the front of the truck, to the rope to pull the stand up in the tree, and then we're going to put chains on it and straps on it to hold it in place. So by the time I'm in the truck, it's my stepdad's truck, and I'm the one who's backing up. We pulled it down in the hauler, and we're backing up this hauler and pulling this deer stand up. So we get it up, you know, and they're messing, trying to get it adjusted right in place. Well, it's dark. Like, it's pitch black dark now because we got started, like, just before the sun went down. And we're standing there, and I'm nervous. And I'm nervous because of what happened and what I know is out here. So I brought my Glock because I'm not going out there, even in the daytime, without some sort of firearm. And I'm the only one that had a firearm. So if you can imagine it, there is a hillside that we're standing on. The truck is facing downhill. It's got a rope attached to the deer stand, because once we got it up there, I left the rope on the truck in case the deer stand slipped. You know, whoever's up there, the truck's going to hold it up there no matter what. So the truck's running, mind you. The lights are on. My stepdad is down on the truck side of the tree on a ladder. My stepbrother is at the top of the deer stand, and they're strapping it up. I'm standing closest to the truck, and TJ is standing in between me and the tree. The truck is an injected 350, okay? It's got a very recognizable rumble, okay? I'm standing there, and I am thinking that I'm hearing footsteps. Sounds like if I'm standing, facing the tree, the truck is to my 8 o'clock, maybe my 7:30, and it sounds like the footsteps start at about my 8:30, probably, I don't know, on the edge of the wood line, and it sounds like they're walking in a circle, okay, and it's coming up to, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Well, I'm hearing what I think are footsteps, and automatically I'm telling myself, oh, Dustin, you're just scaring yourself. You need to calm down. It's the sound of the truck, cackling that you're thinking you're hearing this, okay? So at first, I start hearing it, and it, I barely hear it, so I'm talking myself out of it. Well, as it gets around to where it's like in front of the truck, but it's still a ways off, and it did a big circle around us, okay? So as it's coming around, I'm hearing it, and I'm hearing twigs snap, and it sounds like bipedal footsteps, and it's like whatever it is loud, and it doesn't care. It's not trying to be quiet, and it's going, and it's breaking sticks, and I'm hearing it. And once it gets around the truck, it's taking a few steps and stopping, taking a few steps and stopping. And so TJ was taking little pieces of sticks and throwing them up at me, trying to mess with me, trying to scare me. And I told myself, I'm like, I know I'm hearing this now. Like, I know I'm hearing it, but I'm not going to say anything because I'm the crazy Bigfoot guy. I'm not saying anything. So It's coming around, and when it gets to about my 11 o'clock, it's very loud and very obvious. It gets all the way up to about 11:30, and then it stops, and it starts coming straight in at us. Well, right there's a big tree to my left with a bush, and TJ had this little keychain flashlight. And I'm like, TJ, give me your keychain light. And he's like, what? I'm like, give it to me. He's like, what is it? I'm like, nothing, just give it to me. And I hear this thing coming in on us, and the footsteps changed. It's no longer making these long, crunching footsteps. It's going, and it sounds like it is now like it's tiptoeing, and it's moving. Its feet are moving faster and for shorter spurts. So it's like sit for 30, 45 seconds. Where before it was making very obvious bipedal footsteps. I mean, almost clear as day, except I got this truck running. TJ can't hear it, but he's not listening for it. And I think that's the only reason. I wasn't listening for footsteps. I was hearing something, and then I noticed these are footsteps because once it got up in front of the truck, it was obvious. And so it's coming in, and I start shining this light on this tree, and it gets into where I'm at the point where I'm like, why can't I see this? And once it gets to that point, it stops, and it doesn't ever make another sound again, but I've already drawn my pistol, and TJ looks up at me, and I can see his face because he can tell because he was trying to scare me because he's throwing little sticks at me. And he could tell that I was serious and I'm about to shoot this gun. But I still haven't said anything other than give me that light. And because I told myself, I'm going to shoot before I say anything. And my stepdad and stepbrother are still up in the tree. And my stepbrother, thank you God that he said this, because I was not going to, because I was not going to play into, Dustin's the crazy Bigfoot guy. He was the first one to say it, and then we all thought we heard something. My stepbrother goes, guys, there's something big, and it's moving right at us. And at this time, my stepdad had came down the ladder and was standing at the base of the ladder. And he goes, no, where? Just like that. And my stepbrother goes, right where Dustin's pointing that light. And my stepdad's like, what? And he gets in the truck, and he's got this little plug-in spotlight that goes into the cigarette lighter. And he gets it, and he's shining the light. And I tell him, I'm like, Brandon, I'm happy you said that, man, but you need to get down, and we need to get out of here. And, you know, my stepdad and teacher are like, what is it? Where is it? I'm like, it's right behind this tree. And so he's shining the spotlight as best he can because there's that big bush around this tree. And this tree is probably a good 2.5 to 3 foot across. And it's a big oak tree. And he's shining the light. He's like, where, Dustin, what were you hearing? What were you hearing? I'm like, I heard it back here, and it walked all the way around, came up, and then once it got like behind that tree, it was far away, and it started coming in at us, but it was pitter-patter, and I'm like, dude, let's go. And so he throws the last strap on. We all get in the truck and leave. Never saw anything. I believe 100% that was a bipedal creature, whatever it was. And, I mean, if it was a deer, we had the truck running, the lights on, 4 guys talking, making a lot of noise, putting that up in the
deer
stand.
wouldn't do that. Deer wouldn't do that.
But what's funny is, so later, this was a few days later, we went back and told everybody, and my stepdad and TJ said that they didn't ever hear anything, but Brandon heard it, and my stepbrother heard it, and I asked him, I'm like, what did that sound like? He said, it sounded like a person was sneaking up. It just sounded big, and they were coming right towards us. And so a couple of days later, I asked one of their family members that owns the property touching this property. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, did my stepdad tell you what happened the other night? And he was like, I can't remember if he said he did or didn't, but I think either he did tell him or I told him real quick what happened. And it's very funny what he said. Now, this is the property touching this property, like that path where it turns to go to the east field, that fence right there. On the other side is this guy's property. And then, so I asked him, and he ends up saying, it's funny, which I think he was disputing it. He was saying, oh, well, that's deer. I was like, well, why do you say that? But he tells me, well, if you come down here at night and you pull in the middle of the field and you shut your lights off and you shut your truck off, now it's got to be nighttime, and you roll your windows down, the deer will come right up to your truck. Now, you won't see them, but you'll hear them come up. He tells me that, and it just blows my mind. And I'm like, what do you mean? So if you pull up in your field at night, you shut your lights off, you shut your truck off, and you roll your windows down, that you will hear deer come right up to your truck, but you won't see them. And then when you turn your lights on and turn around, there won't be anything in the field. He's like, yeah, deer will come right on up. I've done it a couple times. I've had it happen a couple of times out here. And it just blew my mind because I'm like, this guy is experiencing these things, and he thinks that these are deer coming, wild white-tailed deer coming up to his truck at night. And then when he turns on the light and spins around in the field, that he doesn't see him standing there. Now, to me, that makes no sense.
No, it sounds like cognitive dissonance, denial. But that's, if you're not expecting it, and and you don't believe such things are real, why wouldn't you say it's deer? But that doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound like deer behavior to me. I mean, they're usually very skittish around human beings, unless it's there. They get accustomed to whoever, and maybe they expecting to get some kind of free handout or something. I don't see why a deer would ever want to come to a car, a vehicle that has a human being in it. Now,
Yes,
I can see like smaller critters, a skunk and that kind of thing, but it doesn't seem normally. It doesn't seem that way.
something that's funny is if you go in the city and you see a squirrel, because I've argued with people, about hunting squirrel, and this person that I argued with was from the city, and like, where's the sport in that? You can come and you can literally sit right next to the squirrels in the park. That's not fair. Okay, well, squirrels or any animal, deer, like you were saying, that are fed and aren't worried about humans hunting them, absolutely. But even the squirrels down here, if a squirrel sees you from 200 yards out walking across the field, they bolt. They are wild squirrels, wild deer. These guys out here are farmers. Deer that eat their feed get shot.
Right.
They don't play. They don't feed animals. They don't pet animals. But what got me is he said they'll come up, but you won't see them. So by the time you turn on your truck and spin around, you're not going to see the deer. It's just it's amazing how ignorant people are, and I don't mean ignorance as an insult. It's a state of awareness.
It's cognitive dissonance. It's
Absolutely.
It's denial. We can go back to like a different example. People that say about what's going on with the government and all that. Or that the government would lie to you. It's cognitive dissonance. It's denying the reality of what's before you, right before your eyes. So, because you don't want to believe it. Why would anybody want to believe that there's that? It kind of ruins your hunting experience, doesn't it?
It's not just mine. It ruins my nephews. Who I look at my nephew as a son. I mean, he's very near and dear to my heart. But it ruins his, because my plan is to pass on what I know to him. That's part of the motivation for me to get back out, because I want to teach him these things. But it does. It ruins everything. Everything having to do with the outdoors, or walking from your door to your house to your car at night even.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And you're talking about my son, all the things that I've learned over the years is like, what do I actually share to my son? Because I know an awful lot of there's a lot of bad things in the world, and you don't want to crush people's spirit and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to ruin their life experience. But I guess there's times you got to be real about things, and if this is happening, and it's happening to you, it's happening to other people, and maybe it's time really for people to really take this topic more seriously, instead of being some kind of novelty, some kind of fascinating, interesting story that tickles the sensations. Maybe it's time that we say, you know what? Maybe there's a lot.
Absolutely.
It's real. I mean, you listen to these guys like the Outlaws and all that, and they talk about their childhood and boogers in the trees and all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of comical when you first hear this stuff, but the more and more you think about it, I was like, well, either these guys are part of some giant psyop and they're getting paid to do this stuff, which they're really good at, and they're really good actors, or you know what? The problem is there's so many people, and the fact of the matter is, if you haven't figured out, human beings are really good about keeping secrets. They'll say otherwise, but no, they're really good. We're really good about keeping secrets, especially if somebody, in authority, who says, you know what, this is hush hush. Don't talk about it. This is, need to know basis. This is, maybe it's some national security issue type of thing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of reasons that people just won't tell other people what happened. I mean, my father, his experience, in Vietnam. He would never talk about it. The only reason I know anything about it is because the letters that he sent my mom while he was there. He wouldn't talk about it. So, there's a lot of things that we hide. We're just not going to tell other people. There's things that we do, whether we're ashamed of or we're embarrassed of, or we don't want to deal with the consequences of opening up our mouth. And this is one of those issues. And so one has to ask the question, because it's even, you look at the what's on television and these supposed Bigfoot shows. I really believe they're government psyops because they never find anything, and they make the guys look like idiots, and like they're just grown men, having some kind of I don't know, midlife crisis type thing, but obviously they're not doing justice to the cause if so many other people and from different walks of life are talking. They're saying that they had this experience, and it's not something that's pleasurable. It's the complete opposite. It's not like anything. It seems sensational to those of us from the outside looking in because, it's easy for me to dismiss you. I never had it.
Absolutely.
But, you got to have some kind of humanity and compassion for people. You got to understand it. If somebody like you is going through, this kind of traumatic experience, I mean, that's because something real happened. I mean, they'll try to make it out that it's something, it's just vain imagination, stuff like that. But, I mean, the more and more you learn about things, the more you realize there's a lot of truth to things like mythology that they hide, and stories from the past that they have systematically have caused us to become more and more disassociated with the realm of reality that we live in. So I think it's been awesome. I really enjoyed this, Dustin. I think I hope and pray that your show will be successful and you get a lot out of this and you get some good therapy out of it. You find some good friends. Hopefully you realize you found a friend in me. Anytime you want to talk, anytime you want to be on the show and say, hey, this is, I need to talk, and I want something to talk, something to listen to, I'm there, man. So,
same here, Michael. Same here. I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on the show and contacting me, and I really enjoyed this interview as well.
That's awesome. So, so this is Dustin, and you got new recording coming up, and tomorrow, is that what it is?
Tomorrow, I'll be releasing the part 2 to Mark Zaski's interview.
Mark seems like a pretty interesting guy himself. So it's Crypto PTSD, folks. Check it out and subscribe and help Dustin get us on his way and help him in his journey. Dustin, just stay on it. I'm going to end the recording.
All righty.
Oh, hey, kiddo. How was the hill?
Educational.
Oh, learn a new trick?
Yeah, the trick to a happy, fulfilling life, maybe. I learned that mountain air unleashes my inner peace. And rip and pow, well, the whole crew's all, yoo! Induces spontaneous joy.
Okay, that's nice.
The Icon Pass lets you do you at 50 destinations worldwide from $249 adult. Drop in for next winter now and save at iconpass.com.
Go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.